Welcome to part 3 of making my Outlander costume. In part 1 I did Claire's outer garments, in part 2 I did her undergarments, and in this video I will be making her shoes from scratch. I also have a part 4, so it's sort of a behind the scenes, get ready with me kind of vibe, so feel free to check that out if you'd like. If you want to see how I go making a pair of 18th century shoes from end to end, then stick around. Alright, so I haven't made shoes in ages, so this may be a challenge or it may be totally fine. I've got my lasts here. I'll actually only need one, so I'm going to start by taping up my last and then taking that, putting it onto some butcher's paper and creating a pattern from there. The kind of shoe I'm going to make is a derby shoe. So I've got my I Can Make Shoes course, which is the shoemaking course I did last year. And in that they've got derby shoes. So I'm just going to follow along with that and make the pattern and then the shoes from there. Yeah, so to start with, I am just taping up my last. I should be fast at this because I used to do this a lot, but because it's been a while, I may be a bit rusty. All right, so I've got my last all taped up, ready to draw a pattern onto it. I'm just outlining where I need to cut off that masking tape around the bottom. Now I'm drawing my pattern onto my last. And next I'm sticking down that masking tape pattern onto some butcher's paper, which I'll then add seam allowances onto and cut out. Alright, so I've finished my shoe patterns for my derby shoes. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out my pieces of fabric for my upper and for the lining as well, so for the outside and the inside of my shoes. Okay, so the two materials I've chosen to use is firstly the leftover boucle, I think it's pronounced, material from my top, so that should match pretty nicely with the outfit. And then I have this brown pleather material for the lining. So brown pleather for the lining and forest greeny brown boucle material for the uppers, so the outside of the shoe. Okay, so I have all of the pieces of fabric for my lining and for my uppers cut out. Now I'm going to get started on putting my uppers together, so sorting out the outside of my shoe, and then I will move on to the inside of my shoe, so my lining. Okay, I'm changing tact a little bit. I'm going to start just by sticking my tongues together, so it's wrong side to wrong side for both the lining and the upper, and then making sure my little notches here are the same, so it's the same side of the shoe. So the tongue pieces are staying as a raw edge, so I don't need to fold it over and press it down with the little hammer or anything. I might do the same with my lining. I might just keep it all as raw edges and stick them together and then piece the shoe up. The Highlander inspiration for shoes that I have for Claire looks more like raw edges anyway, so it could just be that it turns out to be slightly easier and less work. You can actually use a water-based glue for this. I know with the shoemaking course that I have that the teacher just uses a water-based glue for this because it doesn't need to be as strong, but I love that I have my little applicator brush for my super strong glue, which makes it a lot easier to apply. So I'm just gonna keep using the super strong glue. Okay, so now I'm just loosely attaching the back piece of my lining to the back piece of my upper to make it a bit easier to stitch. Now I'm just stitching up around the bottom section of my back piece. I'm also just stitching that back little V up as well. Alright, and there are the back two pieces of my first shoe stitched together. Now I need to piece the back and the front pieces of my shoe together. So I'm sort of sandwiching this piece of underlay in between the upper and the lining for the back piece. I'm just quickly stitching along the two uppers I just stuck together, not stitching the lining with that. Now I'm just sticking the other piece on and doing the same as I did with the first side. Alright, so now I've got my uppers all sewn together. Now I need to stitch my lining pieces together on the inside. Alright, so the next step, still following on from my I Can Make Shoes Derby pattern section course, I need to punch some holes in with my trusty hole puncher. So I'm just going to stab them with my awl and try and mark them up a bit and then punch the holes. Alright, so there's one side done. And now both sides are all punched and finished. Now I am adding my laces on so that when I put my upper and lining onto my last, I can see exactly how tight I need to pull it. Now I am just taping up the bottom of my last so I can make a pattern for my insoles. So the sort of hard sheet of cardboard that I'll cut out, and we'll pull all my lining and upper fabric over. Now I'm just tracing around the pattern I just made so that I can cut out my insole board. Alright, it is time to glue my lining onto my insole board, which is always the hardest part. Alright, so I've got the first one all stuck down, and then I made sure that the laces were in the right spot as well, as recommended to do on my course. And then I taped up, it was kind of hard to stick it, but taped up the back so that the back height stays the same on this side as the other. Okay, time for the stiffeners. I'm just doing the same, but for the heel. All right, and there's one all done. The next step is to stick down my upper. I'm also just cutting out a couple of pieces of leather. So what I'd normally use to fill in this bottom section of the shoe here, my cork filler has like died on me. It's all super stuck together and unusable. So I'm just gonna use some leather instead to just fill in that little spot. So for the final piece of the puzzle, I just need to add on some soling. So I'm just making my pattern now. I'm just sort of tracing around the outside of the shoe. All right, I'm using some soling that I literally have had for ages and have never opened. It's pretty thick and heavy duty, so maybe not quite what Claire would have had, but I don't really want to use my softer soles because obviously if it was the 18th century, she would have been trudging through like forest, and so I think she needs something a little bit tougher. The reason I bought this soling is because it's got this really textured, grippy bottom, and I'm always scared of slipping over in the rain because I actually have done previously. So this is perfect. I'm surprised I haven't opened it earlier. I will say it is so hard to cut though. I'm just trying to trim it down a little bit more to get rid of the little silver pen mark on the edge. I really want to avoid sanding it as much as I can because I'm worried I'll hit the material and scuff up the shoe. Time to stick on my soles. So I'm just using my super strong glue, sticking it on the sole, and then I'll stick it on the bottom of the shoe as well. Just gonna try and trim a little bit off the back. Now I'm just doing a little bit of sanding and then I should almost be finished. I'm very close to the 40-hour mark for this project, so I really want to try not to go over 40 hours. And it's time to take out my lasts. I'll see if I can just shimmy it out rather than when you snap the last to get it out. There might be enough stretch. Okay, maybe not. Oh. Okay, I stand corrected. I couldn't get it out, so now I'm gonna have to break the last. Oh, probably a good way to damage the shoe, but anyway. Oh, almost there. Yeah, that was really hard, but we got there. Oh, come on. Come on, please. Come out and don't break the shoe. Yes. I got it off. All right, so I managed to get both of my lasts out of my shoes. Now as just a final little step, I'm just gonna take my insole and cut out some pieces of foam just so I can stick them in and make the shoes a little bit more comfortable. All right, and I'm just adding my soft little foam insole in. There we go. All right, and that is them all done and my project finally finished after 40 hours of work.